wish to speak to any item on the agenda or during the public comment portion of the meeting, please fill out a speaker card. Each person addressing the board shall have 3 minutes to complete his or her comments on each agenda item for which he or she has filled out a card. The chair has the discretion to determine or alter the time limits on any agenda item. The Board of County Commissioners requests that speakers appearing under the public comment section of the agenda limit their comments or presentations to matters relating to county business that are within the board's control, authority, and jurisdiction.
Good morning. Welcome to the November 12th, 2024 Brevard County Commission meeting. Pastor Mark, would you come up, sir? Mr. Pastor Mark Lewis, and you are of First Baptist Church in Merritt Island, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes. Proverbs 2:6-8 reads, "For the Lord gives wisdom, from his mouth come knowledge and understanding. He stores up sound wisdom for the upright. He is a shield to those who walk in integrity, guarding the paths of justice and watching over the way of his saints." Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we ask that in this day and at this time that you would give us your wisdom, your knowledge, and your understanding. And Heavenly Father, we thank you for the divine wisdom that you give us from above, because it shields us and protects us. And God, I pray for the council members today, and I pray for those who will be presenting and speaking. God, that you truly would watch over each person, that you would guide us by your love, by your mercy, and by your grace. And Heavenly Father, we thank you that you are the one who gives us understanding in every matter, and you know all hearts. And so, Heavenly Father, at this time, we entrust ourselves to you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
And thank you, sir. We have a quorum. I'll call the meeting to order. Commissioner Feltner.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Commissioners, I don't believe I have any cards on the consent agenda. Can I have a motion to approve it unless you guys have something you'd like to have pulled?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Motion by Commissioner Goodson.
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Feltner. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 4-0. We are going to move into public comment. Do we have any public comment cards?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Christina Fleming.
Good morning, Commissioners. Christina Fleming, District 3, retired firefighter. I'm going to start out. Woods, Hurley, Rutherford, Cohen, Cole, Frazier, Hill, Pierce, Glasser, Martinez, Rad, Corman, Nelson, Veith, Daly, Braga, Baumgartner, Bodine, McElroy, Litzenberg, Zart, Underwood, Murphy, Georgieff, Milliken, Shirley, DeRival, Moore, Espinoza, Sasser, Alexander, Bruner, Minnow, Luisi, Riviera, Smith, Henninger, Fuentes, Cruz, Toro, Colin, Shepard, McBride, Chadwick, McGowie, Vogt, Bollet, Marple, Hudson, Hatt, Smith, Douglas, Graber, Cristaldi, Nackreimer, Higgins, Marsh, DeLeon, Powers, Keeler, Cunningham, Allenson, Gandy, Rada, Torres, Resendez, Bell, Ricky, Jones, Jaglow, Boyer, Garcia, Bozinius, Rack, Frosch, Murray, Braga, Scott, Gillette, Sinclair, Hendricks, Sansone, Nieves, Carnival, Love, Joseph, Alcalade, Wood, Uzel, Wash, Tirado Cuevas, Sander, Tripari, Helen. Dispatcher Carroll, Assistant Chief Connor, Dispatcher Coates, Dispatcher Kelly, Logistics Rose, Fire Inspector Osborne, Logistics Manager Longstreet, Dispatch Valdez, Logistics Clappel, Assistant Chief DeStefano, Admin Cindy Pollen, and IT Ciravello. These are 92 field personnel, 104 total of fire rescue personnel that have left. Historically, departments under the Board of County Commissioners anticipate a 10 to 12% employee attrition annually. This year, we have lost approximately 20% of its field workforce. This is not sustainable. We also have 6 people that have been mandatory today that are being forced to work that didn't want to work today. We also have a restructuring upstairs, and we all know with new titles come new pay. Where is that money coming from?
Thank you, ma'am. Turn my mic off. Mr. Rick Heffelfinger? Yeah. I can do that if you'd like to.
Yeah, I would.
Okay, we'll do that.
I
Sure.
understand there's a rule about you need 5 in that before.
It's all right.
Is it cool?
Yeah, you're the only one left, so, yeah. All right, we're going to move into item H1.
Good morning. This item is a request for after-the-fact unpermitted dredging of Pelican Creek. Staff determined that the proposed activity is not consistent with comprehensive plans related to wetlands, surface waters, and the Manatee Protection Plan. Staff requests that the board consider the applicant's submittal and the staff report and determine whether the activity meets the definitions of best public interest. And I can answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioner Goodson, I have 10 cards on here. I think if you gave an opening with it being in your district, it might help a little before we got started. Do you mind?
Not at all.
Okay.
This is a project down south, Pelican Creek, that the owner did some damage to wetlands and dredged without a permit. So therefore, we could be on the county could be on the hook between $500,000, $700,000 for mitigation and putting back mangroves and all that. Now, with all that being said, this is right now is a finding to see if we want to further this, right? Is that right, staff?
Whether the proposed activity and the completed activity meets the definition of best public interest.
Right. That's all it is, Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir. May I have Mr. Greg Loggins, applicant?
Morning, Madam Chairman, members of County Commission. I'm Kim Rosenka. I'm here on behalf of actually the applicants, Aaron Renninger and Mr. Xavier. I have met with staff recently, and we are requesting a continuance till December 3rd. The staff report came out relatively late, and we did have one meeting with staff late on Friday, but we would like to have more opportunity to meet with them. I've talked with Mr. Dunninghoff. December 3rd would be before the proposed code enforcement. There are a number of people here that may want to speak, but also, too, it's a really complicated issue, and if we start now and it is continued to December 3rd, we would have to start all over again. So I do have a presentation if you deny the continuance, but I think we were going to try to work with the county to find out a mutual agreeable solution. So the county's not on the hook for $700,000, which I think is not likely, because ultimately, if restoration is made, it has to start with my clients. So with that, I would ask that you continue to December 3rd.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, Commissioner Goodson.
Staff, can you comment on that? Would you be in agreement with that or not?
We feel like we're on pretty solid ground with our policy interpretations with the assistance of the county attorney's office, but if you all would like to decide for continuance to work with them, we could certainly do that.
Okay.
Commissioners, to sort of speak to this, our position, as Darcy just explained, is pretty solid. We believe we did have a meeting last week. Technically, this is their request for a public interest determination, and we responded to their request. And now they would like to, I think, respond to our response and our report that we've prepared. We don't anticipate that our position is going to change, but we're willing to listen. I think that, which we attempted to do last week, but it was pretty short notice. I would say that this would not delay the code enforcement case, although I'm not sure where we would stand with the process with DEP and the Corps of Engineers as far as the county's situation, and I haven't considered what their situation with DEP would be.
Okay, all right. John, you got a comment?
Madam Chair,
Please.
can you speak to the $700,000 that Ms. Rosanka
I can
mentioned?
explain how that has arisen. Originally, we had anticipated, based on the DEP proposed consent order to the county, that we could be conceivably on the hook for as much as $700,000, but it's really $500,000. One of the challenges is that part of the consent order expects us to provide plantings for trees that the applicants for the PID tore out, we had trimmed them aggressively, I guess, but elsewhere when we've done that, they've grown back, but they don't grow back when you tear them out by the roots, and which is what happened. And so we don't know how we can replant without restoration, and so that puts us in a serious state of limbo, if you will, regarding what it is we will wind up doing. So we're negotiating with DEP regarding this. As far as what the county would be requested to do, we certainly have opinions about who should plant the trees. The one that tore them out should plant the trees. But that's really not a matter for the PID at this point. But it will be with DEP and with the special magistrate in the code case. So the cost of plantings and the cost of mitigation are where those expenses come from.
One follow-up. I got the timeline for the code compliance December, and this would not technically impact that, but can you speak to the consent order? You mentioned, what's the timeline with that? If we have to, do we have to have a plan to DEP by a certain date, and what impact will pushing this till December or a later date have on our issue with DEP?
We are working with DEP, negotiating, if you will, going back and forth, and we've proposed a couple of meetings with them. We're not sure how that's going to work out. They've taken a position which, if it were my choice, we would absolutely reject and go to an administrative hearing regarding, if they persist in the position that they have. On the one hand, I don't know. I don't have a specific timeline. It'll be a case of if they reach a point where they don't want to talk to us about it any longer, we think we're at an impasse, then we'll probably go to administrative hearing.
May I respond?
Yes, ma'am.
The irony is when we met with FDEP last year, they were giving us time to go through this public interest determination process. And if the county granted a public interest determination process, we would permit what could be done, possibly have to restore some, and that would have stayed everything for the county as well. We are also negotiating with FDEP and Army Corps. We're in a tolling agreement with Army Corps. And basically what FDEP wants is going to include Mr. Renninger, Mr. Xavier, and the county. They've done individual consent orders waiting on the other to do something, which makes no sense. So we're trying to talk to FDEP to get if we have a consent order, a joint consent order, because they have our obligations in the county's consent order and the county's obligations in our consent order, and it makes no sense. So we are also working with both DEP and Army Corps. But again, the irony is if we got the PID, the county wouldn't be on the hook for anything. And that seems to be missing in this whole analysis.
Question.
Please, Commissioner Goodson.
Question, then, if you were waiting on that, why did you do the dredging and tear up the mangroves?
I did nothing, and again, that's in a
Well,
code...
your client, why did you?
Yeah, that's in a code enforcement issue. I can't speak to that. Mr. Renninger and Mr. Xavier would have to speak that. We are now trying to do something that has been done hundreds of times in this county with a public interest determined after the fact. People often go in and impact wetlands or build in the surface water protection or the shoreline protection buffer, and they come to you and ask for a public interest determination. Most times there's not even a discussion. And we had met with the county last July, and we thought we were going down this path. We were quite shocked when we got that report. That's something we're trying to work through. That's why I immediately got a meeting 2 days after we got the report, but my consultants were involved, and the consultants need to be involved.
Madam Chair?
Please, sir.
From what she said, is there any truth to that, or is that totally, or is everybody confused?
So our wetlands protection code and comprehensive plan have certain allowances for the board to make public interest determinations for wetlands. That involves, say, if it's a commercial development in a commercial area on a corridor where they have to go out and assess the functionality of it, and then the comprehensive plan allows you, an applicant, to ask you for that public interest determination for commercial development. For residential development, we have a density restriction in there, but there's allowance according to the year you're platted, the size of your property. But the public interest determination is for commercial properties and wetlands. Surface water protection also has a public interest determination section in it for impacts in the surface water protection buffer. However, wetlands is only related to commercial development in certain circumstances.
And do I understand you, Madam Chair, may I? Do I understand you to say that your position, if you have this as a contingency, is not going to change tomorrow, next week, or when they come back? Is that a pretty fair statement?
Not to my knowledge. I mean, we have overlapping policies that are prohibiting the activity, which would be the wetlands protection, also the surface water protection, and the manatee protection plan. So there's different layers on there for the denial of the request. And for best public interest is supposed to be a public project. So that would be if Public Works had to do something for flood control and the Army Corps and the state approved it, that would be a public interest under our best public interest project.
Commissioners, I don't anticipate that our position is going to change. As I said, we're pretty firm on, we understand what the facts are. We know what happened. We know most of when it happened. And we also are aware of the fact that our code officer appeared and based on a complaint on a Wednesday before Thanksgiving, and informed the applicant, the property owners, that they needed to discontinue that because they were doing so without a permit. And they proceeded to continue with the digging before the code officer even left the site. So we don't anticipate that we're going to hear anything that's going to make us change our minds, but we haven't heard it. So we haven't, we haven't heard more than what they've put in their application, which we've provided information which we think effectively rebuts almost everything that was in that application. So I'd be curious to know what it is they think is different that we would want to reconsider in some way. But I don't want to say that we're infallible. We could change our minds, I suppose.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we continue with this today and let her present her case.
You have cards now.
Yes. Ms. County Attorney, did you have a comment? Sir, your light's on.
I think it was answered by staff. Thanks.
Thank you. So, Commissioner Goodson, you want to bring this at a further date after they have time? No. You want to do it today? You got it. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and hear cards.
Okay. All right. I do want to bring to the board's attention one issue. This is going to be an evidentiary hearing. You've heard evidence from Mr. Denninghoff. I was hoping we didn't have to go into that process and we could resolve this by December 3rd. The consultants have not had the opportunity to talk with them. We disagree one, they never answered your question. If we had a PID, would that solve the issues? They just, again, went to their code, and we disagree with their interpretation of the code. At the end of this hearing, I am going to ask for 7 days to bring a rebuttal according to your board policy. So this is going to be tabled. It would have to be by your board policy to let us come back with rebuttal evidence after 7 days, which would put us back into the new commission. So again, I would ask that the rest of the board consider tabling this so we can do this properly.
Okay, I am not that great at county legalism. Mr. Richardson, is that correct, sir?
I'm looking, where are you looking
Board
at, Kim,
policy
for the rebuttal?
97. Yes, sir. Board policy 97. It's on page 6, under 4, quasi-judicial hearings. In addition to or in lieu of cross-examination, the applicant may request an additional 7 days beyond the date of hearing to submit evidence and rebuttal of testimony presented by the persons presenting evidence in opposition to the applicants and tabling of the item to allow consideration of the submissions. So I will be doing that at the end of this hearing, which will put this
You
in.
may request it, but it's not required that the board allow it. Furthermore, the public interest determination here really is a legislative finding of the board, so it's different than your quasi-judicial proceedings. So while the applicant can request that, she's correct, the board's not required to grant it.
But this is an evidentiary hearing, which puts it into quasi-judicial, in my opinion. All right,
Thank you, ma'am.
so there's no motion to continue. The other issue I was concerned about is there's only 4 commissioners present, and we weren't able to meet with all the commissioners before this item. So that was another reason that I wanted to continue this. But we are prepared to go forward if that is the will of the commission. Again, my name is, we're moving forward, correct?
Pardon, ma'am? I'm sorry, I didn't.
Okay, we are moving forward, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, okay. Again, my name is Kim Rosanka.
Morris?
Yes.
Sir, Mr. Richardson.
So help me, or help us here, how much time do we allow the applicant? Does this switch it over to that 15-minute? I don't know.
This is a bizarre one, admittedly, because the proceeding is somewhat quasi-judicial in nature, but ultimately it's a legislative determination you're going to make as to whether it's a public interest or not. It's not a quasi-judicial determination as to the public interest finding, although you may make findings of fact in support of that, so that part is evidentiary. My recommendation would be to allow the applicant up to 15 minutes, allow her to reserve some time for cross-examination or rebuttal if she so desires.
Thank you.
Mine's
You're on.
12.
You just already did 3? Is that with the 3 included, or we start over?
I wouldn't start over.
I'm sorry, you're doing brand-new stuff on me, Ms. Rosanka.
Well,
so
I
you
am,
got
I've
it.
not done one of these before. All right.
All right.
Let me. Again, Kim Rosanka on behalf of Varing Reniger and Roger Xavier, here for the public interest determination to allow for the opportunity for the clients to apply for a permit to the St. Johnson Army Corps to fix the alleged dredging and the alleged impacts to wetlands and mangroves. We met with the county back in July of '26. We had a full house of county staff with Mr. Dunninghoff. Natural Resources was present. After the county explained its position, discussion revolved around this PID, and we really thought we were moving down this path. It took time for the consultants, Lisa Tolan and Clayton Bennett, to work through the process so we could get the public interest determination to you. We have been working on this for a year. You have previously done many PIDs for commercial, industrial, and for restaurants based upon an economic issue, not really a public interest determination. So we did not think this would be as contentious as it has become. I did meet with the staff last week, and we were hoping to move forward. But it appears that there is no interest in trying to resolve this problem through Army Corps and DEP through the staff. They just want this fixed. And we believe that there are reasons to allow this to be done, to allow a permit to go forward with Army Corps and FDEP to make this a more navigable canal. Impacts to wetlands or the shoreline or the surface water are allowed for the navigation issues. And there are times, and Mr. Reniger will tell you, that he has navigated in this canal. Under 623694, permitted uses are recreation. There is a prohibition, but it also says that if a functional wetland has been, in fact, impacted and it's not feasible or desirable to repair and maintain, then there's a mitigation process. At this point, we don't even know how this could be repaired. The county doesn't allow for revetment, they don't allow for stabilization, so backfilling of this is going to be very difficult, which is why we wanted to go forward and try to work with the county to try to resolve this. Again, we had thought the county was going to be in support of this PID throughout this process, and it was surprising when we received the report last Wednesday. There are some discrepancies within the staff report. They say there is routine maintenance, but they cut the mangroves down to the roots. They piled up debris along my client's property and along the county property for 420 feet. This was not routine maintenance, and they did indeed dredge. They removed muck, but it was still dredging. Regarding where this was done, this is a man-made canal. The pictures are before you. So this was man-made canal and man-made wetlands. They're not pristine wetlands. It's not a perfect habitat. This is not leveraged to obtain permits. This is a requirement. We have to get the county's public interest determination. Otherwise, we don't meet the managed protection plan and we can't move forward. The dredging is for water flow, for the public, and for boat use. The historical use includes applicants' use of the canal with boats. The county admits that it's man-made, that it's 2 to 3 feet deep, certainly deep enough for boats. The county's financial risks, if the applicant is permitting these wetlands, the financial risk to the county is nominal. The applicants will move forward with all the permitting, all the work, and then the consent order will just go away into the sunset, because the consent orders now do anticipate that things would be repaired or permitted. Again, the other PIDs you've approved have been Boniface Hires, Wickham Corners, Tractor Supply, Marker 99, and again, these are all things that either were very large wetlands for economic or to fix something that had been done in the past. So the packet I gave you, the public interest determination, this was a man-made canal. You can see that in 1969, part of this was dredged. In 1991, St. John's issued a permit for this exact work that is being requested that would be, again, permitted. And you'll see that phase 1 of this was completed. You'll see in that page 3 of what I gave you, the county does say that they removed 400 plus or minus feet of vegetation. They mulched 10 feet along the east and west bank. However, they left the mulch and the dredging material along the property of my clients. You'll see the canal maintenance photos and dates. This was prepared by my client, Mr. Reniger. You'll see that they cut to the roots. So this was a project that was started by the county and that was not done to standards that the average person would have been required to do. Perhaps they didn't take the roots, but they took them down to the roots. The next picture is, again, before and after pictures of the county mulching. And you can see what was taken down to the ground. And then the single photo is, again, what had been removed by the county. The Exhibit A that's in your packet, this shows the restoration area that's being requested by FDEP, and that yellow area is the portion that the county has to do. Exhibit B is more of the area north of Old Causeway that the county has to do. And then the second Exhibit A is what Mr. Reniger and Mr. Xavier are being requested to do. So this is what FDEP wants my clients to do, not the county to do. So that's why I do not believe that $700,000 is accurate. The next I've given you is a flow chart prepared by Ms. Toland, and it explains why we're here. that we have to get a PID to comply with the Manatee Protection Plan. Even if we get this PID today, we have to go forward to the Army Corps and FTEP, then have to come back and get permits from the county. But this would all forestall the consent order. And then as the last picture I've showed you is a picture of Mr. Renninger and his daughter in a kayak in this canal. A canal is a man-made waterway. That's what this is. Passive recreation is appropriate for man-made waterways. Public interest include passive recreation. This is all from your code and your comp plan. The discrepancy we have is the 623694 interpretation that this canal dredging is a residential land use. It's not. It's a canal. So the saying that you can't impact wetlands for residential use is correct, but this is for canal use, for flow and drainage and recreation. Again, shoreline protection buffers allowed for recreation. Surface water protection buffers allowed for passive recreation. Pest public interest is a net benefit to the public. Staff has said that there's really no benefit for the flow. Well, if you build a deeper hole, you're going to hold more water. So there is a flow benefit, and Mr. Bennett can explain that a little bit better. The staff report didn't say there's no benefit. They said it's a nominal benefit, and it's the beginning of a plan that the county had started and that this would assist with. Regarding Objective 5 of the Wetlands Comprehensive Plan, we have a concern that it's not feasible to repair and maintain this wetland based upon the need to revet and fill. We're talking about 45 feet of fill that may be necessary. And with turbidity and all of those other issues with filling, it's going to be very difficult to do. New navigation channels connected to the Indian River are possible when it's in the best public interest. Maintenance of ditches that have been connected to the that have been designed or been used for boat traffic is also another reason for best public interest. We have provided at least one picture that this has been used. We have stated this has been used for navigation. The intent is to permit what has been done or as much as the Army Corps and DEP and the county will allow. We cannot do that without a public interest determination, and that's why we're here. With that, I'd like you to stop my time. And Lisa Toland. Lisa? And Mr. Bennett, if you'd come up too, because you're only going to get about a minute and a half each. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Lisa Tolan. I'm with Tolan Environmental Consulting, 4092 Sparrowhawk Road, Melbourne, Florida. I just kind of want to just really summarize and probably more succinctly what some of the points that Kim had made previously, and to take that step back that this is a man-made upland dredged canal that over time has recruited with mangroves, and then upland of those mangroves, it's recruited with some shoreline wetlands. The county came in and basically took those mangroves, which arguably are the most valuable part of the shoreline water interface. Mangroves are the only plant in Florida that is protected by its own special act. So when the county came in, they basically took arguably the best part and mowed it down to the ground, completely in violation of the Mangrove Protection Act. If I was doing this as a private consultant, it would be a 4-year project, and we would never be allowed to go down to less than 6 feet. So to sit there and say, oh, this is all this environmental value, while we basically just take it out, and then what's behind it is worth, driving these people into, massive amounts of money to try and restore the lagoon. It just doesn't make sense. So, sorry, I'm out of my breath. I gotta breathe a little bit. So our position is that the county's interpretation of the code just doesn't make sense on several levels. When you're trying to apply a residential standard and saying that basically the canal is an accessory use to the property, and it's not. It's a separate use. And that concept is reflected in the staff report as well, which says in the prohibition section of the code, if you have wetland impacts that are related to access for surface water, you go over to the surface water ordinance and deal with it in that ordinance. And that makes sense. Wetland ordinances deal with wetlands, surface water ordinances deal with surface waters. When you go over to the surface water ordinance, that's why we're here. It allows for access with the public interest determination. We need this public interest determination because when you are within surface waters, you trigger manatee issues. Manatee issues are the first time where the county starts the regulatory process. Typically, when you go in, you get an ERP from the state, you get a 404 permit from the feds, you bring all your permits back to the county, and then you get your county final development orders. Here, because of manatee issues, the state government and the federal government cannot issue permits in violation of the Endangered Species Act. So we have to have a public interest determination to be consistent with the Manatee Protection Plan to apply for the federal and state permits. So when we denied the PID, you've denied any kind of going back in for the permit.
I'm sorry,
I guess if I'm sharing Kim's time, my time is up.
yes, ma'am. So, okay. Did you guys want to hear from the other gentleman?
If the board wants to consider that the first several minutes of the presentation were used to request the continuance that was denied, the board can certainly do that at its discretion to make sure you hear the case fully.
Yeah, I don't mind hearing the other gentleman for 3 minutes. Y'all good?
Unless they want to reserve it for rebuttal.
Unless you want to reserve for rebuttal. Okay. And you are,
Good morning. My name is Clayton Bennett. I'm a professional engineer registered in the state of Florida. I'm with Bennett Engineering and Consulting, 4940 Ranchland Road, Melbourne, Florida. I'm here to speak about the flood aspects of these improvements. And the county has recognized that there's flooding in this area. And in 2021, hired a consultant to do some analysis in that area. They came up with some different options. They phased it, where they had phase one kind of being a north area, phase two, the south area. They also looked at dredging the canal, not dredging the canal. And we understand that staff had some questions about that. We just got the staff report on Wednesday. I looked at it Thursday and immediately requested of staff the input data that they use for their analysis. And to date, they have not provided that to me to provide additional comment on that. But specifically what I wanted to speak on was this portion from Old Causeway Road south to the tidal waters. The Hansen report that the county had accepted in 2021 showed that if you only did the phase two improvements or you did the phase 1 and 2 improvements, that there would actually be a net impact, and an impact being an increase in stage on the downstream side of Old Causeway Road. And so what can be accomplished here is, well, let me back up. You resolve flood issues by increasing flow. So the county came in and said, in this analysis said, if we put in 3 36-inch culverts, we're going to reduce the flood stages upstream. But by reducing the flood elevations upstream, you have to increase flow. So now there's more flow through this channel from Old Causeway Road south to the tidal waters. If you leave that canal the same dimensions, same roughness coefficient, and you increase the flow by inspection, any questions, I'd be glad to answer those.
thank you. Mr. Scott Hall? Well, he's coming up. May I ask a question, county staff? The photos that you have in our packet, November 23rd, 2022, may I ask you whose property is being dredged in that photo? Who owns that property?
We believe that's Mr. Xavier's property, the one to the south
So the area being dredged, they own those property, that's property they own? The actual land?
Yes, that's part of their property that was delineated wetlands, correct. And you can see, like, as you look to the north, which would be coming down on the paper, that he was working, it appeared that they were working south, from north to south.
Thank you. Mr. Hall?
I live on Mistleview, just north of Erin. I'm not exactly sure how far, but I spend a lot of time up and down the road, playing, enjoying myself. The canal floods on our street, and from our street down to Erin's hasn't been maintained. During this last hurricane, I got in my kayak and I paddled down that all the way down to where there's a culvert in between, but I mean, it is of public interest. Somebody needs to clean that up and get the water flowing properly, because it's flooding our properties up further. So I just believe, I have nothing to tell you it absolutely will help or not, but I mean, I paddled my canoe down it. I can tell you it's jammed up. There's trees across it. It's backflowing. Somebody should look at this in a bigger light than just he's made a problem, because he's kind of fixing the problem that nobody else is addressing. That's about it.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Mark Luders? Then Zachary Coffey, you'll be next, sir.
First of all, I'd like to thank everybody that's here today for this proceeding. I'm proud to be in a country that allows us to come up and speak to these issues that affect us publicly. And especially on the day after Veterans Day, it makes me happy that I did spend the time underwater in the Mediterranean while my son was born. So first of all, I am a neighbor of Erin and the other gentlemen who are part of this proceeding. I'm very familiar with the area. I'm very familiar with what has happened between the county's dredging action. And I agree with the pictures that show that when the maintenance dredge, or whatever you want to call it, went through, if the mangroves are taken down to the roots, I would say it went even further than that, because after that was done, whatever was displaced within the canal was then deposited on top of it. So I would say, if we're going to be working on coming up with a resolution, let's work from a basis of a fact. The fact is, all of that was removed in the beginning by the county's action within that canal, okay? Going from there, I read through the staff report. I find that there's a lot of things that are ambiguous within that report itself, okay? You know, I do know for a fact, being a landowner in the area, at least on the survey that I have, that portion of the canal is classified as being semi-navigable, okay? As I understand it, it was cut way back in the 40s and was maintained to ensure that water was drained sufficiently during times of flooding. It also provides, one of the things that wasn't mentioned was it provides a damper for surface waters to protect our lagoon from also, right? So if we increase that basin, that provides a better, a larger capacity to absorb the surface waters that come down, whether it's pesticides, whatever, to protect our lagoon, right? So that makes sense to me also. So county already recognizes it's a semi-navigable canal. I believe, you know, this is a hearing.
Thank you. Mr. Coffey?
Hello, my name's Zach Coffey. I've been down this canal prior to being dredged and the mangroves cut down, and thereafter, both in kayaks, canoes, power boats, jet skis, all the rest of it. I would say it does have a public interest in recreational use. I've taken my daughter fishing down there. I've taken friends down there fishing. I've seen more wildlife increase in manatees, dolphins, turtles, all sorts of wildlife and birds partaking in that area since it's been dredged, and so I do see it as a positive. I've been up and down that road for the last 5-6 years, taking part in the recreational activity that can happen on that canal. And I've seen how the water is affected through the rains, and now it being wider than it was and deeper. I've seen less water come up into the roads, coming up into the neighboring properties and residential lands there. And so I've seen a flow increase for those areas. I've enjoyed it. I have friends that enjoy it. I think it does have good public interest, and being that it is a navigable canal that's joined to another canal, I think that it is probably something that should be allowed and permitted, and I don't really see an issue with it being the way that it is. And also to say that the mangroves that were cut, those things weren't coming back. They were cut down all the way down to the roots, and as some other people have said, the deposits of the muck and stuff put on top of them thereafter. I mean, nothing's growing there after that. So the county removing the mangroves the way they did, you're not really taking preservation into mind when you do that. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Mark Sojostrom?
Hello, I live on Monterey Avenue, and Monterey is probably 6 blocks to the north of where Aaron's property was, where he supposedly dredged. And at the end of my street, I'll show you what it looked like this morning. Could I show you that? This is this morning, like a picture taken that I just took. See all that water like that? And I lived there 13 years. And I'll show you too. That's the end of my street right now. And it was never ever that bad that it would flood all the time. And then it had always flooded like a few times a year. But now it's like, you saw the signs that are there? Those signs, please no wake through there, and water on road. They're there all the time now. They're just there. And it might dry up a little bit, but then all of a sudden the water comes back. Every high tide, they say it's the king tide, the moon tide, it might be the environmental, whatever now. But after they dredged north of there, right, for all the way almost to 520 or whatever, there's supposed to be some springs up there in the main lake, and that's what creates the water flow out of there, in my mind. And since they dredged the whole part north of my street, there's been this water there. And because they could not dredge where my road is at the end of the street there, they started to, and a thing couldn't do it. So, but they said they'd come back and use the dredge, some other dredge, but they never did it. So it's just full of trees and muck and whatever. Smells sometimes, not all the time. But it's a mess, and the road like that is just wet all the time. So I don't know if the county has to come in and fix the roads or fix whatever, but I think if they dredge that out, it would create a flow that would allow that water to go past I think it's backing up at the end of my street, right, and coming out into the road like the picture you just saw. So I think if they did do that, it would be awesome, and it would be all the streets to the north look really nice. I have pictures of those too. But there's not many mangroves. It's all cleaned up. It looks like how beautiful Aaron behind his house looks like it should look. Not like just a messy canal that was dug haphazardly and just left there. But anyway, so I see it as a good thing if they would do that.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Joel Chambers?
Hey, good morning. My name's Joel Chambers. My family lives on the canal, and I'm here to speak in support of the public interest determination. There's really three factors to me that drive that public interest. The first is flooding. You've heard a lot about the flooding. Navigating the road of Newfound Harbor Drive is a challenge. We see that road flood often, and since the dredging work has commenced, we have seen an improvement to flooding on that road. The second is the wildlife that's taken habitat in that area. We have manatees that now breed in that area. My family loves them, my niece loves them, my parents love them. I would be really sad to see that filled in and see them have to move out. Lastly, we've met a lot of very cool community members. People kayak up and down the canal. We've gotten a chance to meet them, bond with our community, and see people enjoy this canal. So I hope we can work with the county, work with Mr. Renninger, work with the state to improve the area and put it to good use. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Grace Chambers?
Good morning. You just heard from my husband, Joel. I just wanted to reiterate that as a resident that lives along Pelican Creek, since we have seen the work done, we have seen improvement with our particular property as well as our street. The flooding has decreased, and most of all, I really enjoy the wildlife we see now. Prior to any of the dredging work being done, that creek was very shallow, very mucky. It was primarily where we would just see a lot of mosquitoes, and it wasn't bringing a whole lot of value or enjoyment to our backyard. And now, since it has been widened, we're seeing a lot of wildlife. As my husband mentioned, we see manatees. There's one in particular that I have named Beatrice. She lives in our backyard, and she did have a baby about a year and a half ago, which is absolutely wonderful to see. More recently, we've had dolphins, and we've also seen baby dolphins. So as a resident along Pelican Creek, I've really enjoyed seeing all the wildlife and would really like to come to an agreement that helps sustain that environment for them and continues to have them right in my backyard. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Xavier?
Hello, my name is Roger Xavier. I'm one of the applicants in there. I made some copies. I don't think that this is going to be for everyone because I don't have much. So I sold my house in Brazil in order to build this house for vacation. I pay about $10,000 plus per taxes yearly. And I want to enjoy my house. And I can't, because if you see in the very first picture in there, we see some work that the county was doing. And then on the second page, this is my backyard for months. I called the county many times. I tried to speak with everyone here, and in my backyard was like this by the end of the year. I had many family members come from Brazil, and I just could not enjoy the house. Third picture show a little bit more how the backyard was. And then the fourth page, we had the hurricane. With the hurricane, in the very last picture, we see pellets flying over the water, and now we see all the leftover that has been left there for the county, messing up my entire backyard, so we could not enjoy. And I had this cleaned. I have this cleaned. We see that people is kayaking, and we have picture for the wildlife, how they are enjoying the backyard as well. I seen the report that you guys put a repeated offender. I'm not a repeated offender. I'm not even an offender, to be truthful, because I didn't do anything other than clean my property. When I was calling by the county, I come in here, I spoke with somebody here in person. They recommended me to get an attorney. I went to the FDP. At the FDP, they said that the county did something without the permitting. And then at this point, I get my attorney, and I'm trying to resolve. I invest a lot of money in the PID, in between attorneys, engineers, environmentalists, and I would like that this application be considered because it's been a great loss for me. I put a lot of investment in this property, and I would like to be able to enjoy it. This is everything that I have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Loggins or Mr. Renninger, did you want to come speak? Okay.
Hello. I'm Greg Loggins. I'm the developer of Harbor Point back in 1990, 89. And speaking to the public interest, I know technically commercial is different than the public interest here. However, I think we really need to consider what is the public interest, whether it's technical or not. Let's use some common sense. I own one property next to it, north of it. When we went in and developed Harbor Point, we had the original permit to get it drained. And the way we had that was it was better for the property, better for the public. When we did that, it was basically the whole property was a garbage dump. We had people out there throwing vehicles, trash, and everything. We came in and cleaned up a property, almost 20 acres, that was getting basically $7,000 a year in taxes, and now it's probably getting $500,000 or $600,000 a year in taxes. But part of that was the public interest was, one, widening that canal. And St. John's and everybody else agreed that that was better for it. Unfortunately, we had one person fight it, and the market turned into where I couldn't afford to be able to do the dredging. But in that, part of it was that we needed another area for manatees to be able to come in, live, and thrive, and along with dolphin and any other wildlife. Because currently, there's two places for them to come in that are commercial. There's Marker 24, which is a great place. Then a marina that my father originally developed, Biscayne Marina, back in the 70s. And so now, anytime manatees come in, they got to go into where boats are stored. You got anti-fouling paint and everything else in there. But Harbor Point was a safe haven for the manatee to be able to come in there and be able to be protected from boats and everything else. There's one other small little canal pass there that they can come in. But all the way from 520 on, all the way down, there's not a lot of safe places other than the river. So all the agencies agreed, and they thought that this was a better thing, not only to dredge that, but dredged my property that's north that is not as open as what they've done. When they came in there, they pulled all the roots out of my the mangroves, and so the county did that back about a year ago, and it exposed how nasty that part of the canal was. People had dumped tires, all kinds of different things that were in there, and when they pulled that back, it was almost golden. The water was a weird color. But when this was all dredged up and it was all dredged out, now the water's flowing a little bit better, but it could be a lot nicer. And it also could be afforded to be dredged to give a little bit more retention area for the water.
Thank you, sir. That is the end of the cards. Commissioner Goodson?
Could I ask Mrs. Rozanka a question, please?
That would probably be very helpful.
Thank you. Did I understand correctly that, I think it was the day before Thanksgiving, a code enforcement officer came out and spoke to your client and said, you know, you might want to stop till you get this all settled? Is that the correct statement?
That's what is in the staff report. I have not talked to Mr. Cook directly.
Oh, you have not spoke to who?
Mr. Cook, he was the code enforcement officer.
Okay. All right, well then let me ask this. Is there any truth to the statement I just asked her?
Yes, sir. Mr. Cook was on site. He's here in the audience if you'd like to speak with him.
Yeah, please bring him up, okay? Kim, just be patient. I'm coming right back to you. Mr. Cook, can you tell us what you observed when you went out there that day? And it was the day before Thanksgiving, correct?
That's correct.
Please tell us what you observed.
So we received a complaint, and about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we went out to the site. There was dredging ensuing at the time. Mr. Renninger had allowed me on his property. I was able to take photographs. There was no turbidity up. I asked him to put up the turbidity. I asked if he had any permits to proceed. He said he had permits from the FDEP, which he did not. And then I asked him to cease and desist until we could find out what permits were available. At that time, he said that he would. He said he would put up the turbidity. I believe that he did do that. But as I was leaving the site, the excavator continued, and he continued to dredge.
Did you, ma'am, did you go back the Monday after the weekend of Thanksgiving? Did you go back to
I
that
went
site?
back, I can't tell you exactly what time it was. Within very short order, I went back and to see if he had continued. I spoke with neighbors and said that a great bit of debris had flown down into the adjacent canal. There's a subdivision at the end where this canal that he has opened up, it was an original canal. He opened up an additional port that was a wetland that would filter a lot of this that they were complaining about. At that point, that small area is only the width, basically, of the canal that was existing. That's where everything has moved down and gone across. The neighbors were saying that there was a great bit of debris.
All right, please just have a seat in case we need you again, if you don't mind. Madam, can I ask? I guess the most important question I would want to ask you would be this. If you've lived in Florida any time, you know anything about wetlands, anything about water, and a code enforcement comes out to your client and says, you might want to desist until we make sure you got permits, why did he not do that?
That is a question you'd have to ask Mr. Renninger, but this is not code enforcement, sir. This is trying to fix a problem and trying to be compliant. We'll have the code enforcement coming up, but this is trying to show a public benefit to allow us to permit.
No. We wouldn't be here if he'd have stopped and got permits, correct? Would you agree to that?
I agree, sir.
Thank you. Okay, but we're not trying to prove public awareness or something, but if you know anything about water, and you've been in Florida any time at all, and mangroves, you surely don't touch that unless you have the proper permits, which are multitudes of permits, correct? Would you agree?
Which is what we're trying to do now. Is to get
After the fact, you're trying to do it, correct?
Yes, sir. You're in construction. You know that happens often.
When you mess with these people and the fines they give you today, it don't happen often.
I understand. I understand, but after the fact,
You
permits.
put up turbidity barriers, and you stay within your limits. Okay. Madam Chair, that's all I have.
I know Ms. Rosanka was going to ask for additional time. You guys willing to give her additional time here at the end before we?
Just 2 minutes.
2 minutes, ma'am.
Find where I need to be. Okay, thank you. Again, this isn't code enforcement. This is asking for a public interest determination so permits can be obtained. May not have been the smartest thing to do. It appears that work was done by the county. Some sort of mess was made. There was some water that came through and cleared it up. I'm not here to judge my client. I'm here to try to ask for permission to move forward for permitting, which would also cure the problems that FDEP has with Brevard County. This is to be compliant. As you've known with the Republican governments that have come in, they want compliance. They don't want punitive actions. And we are trying to have the ability to apply for all the permits, even coming all the way down to the state and county level. If you look at the application, there are 2 pages of justifications for this public interest determination. Improved water quality, flow, recreation, manatees, dolphins, you've heard from the public. So this is just to allow the permitting to go forward to cure the problem. There are reasons here. The staff report really didn't even talk about the justifications. All they talked about is their interpretation of the code. If county staff had wanted this to go forward, if this county commission wants it to go forward, there are ways to interpret your code that allows it. And that is what I wanted to talk with them about before going through this hearing. Because you can impact wetlands for navigation. You can impact wetlands for dredging. You can do all of these things under your code, under your comp plan, but it starts with manatee protection plan. And if we don't have this public interest determination, we can't get any permits moving forward. So with that, I ask that you approve the public interest determination as requested, as this board has done many, many times before. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioner Goodson, sir?
Staff, what's going to happen if we don't approve this?
If the request is not approved, then we would require well, let me take that back. It'll go to the special magistrate, and then it'll be I don't know if that's the right word, determined through the special magistrate what will happen, which we would request would be restoration of the wetlands.
And Madam Chair?
Please.
Then, depending on the ruling there, then would the client be able to come back then after he satisfies all those problems, asking for what he's asking for?
We'd be right back where we started, except for we'd be doing it before the fact instead of after the fact, because, again, our interpretation is that the requested activity is contrary to the comprehensive plan, the manatee plan, all that stuff. So we would be sitting back here with a restored shoreline for consideration at that point.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Goodson, it's your district,
Yep,
sir.
yep. I'm not going to agree on what the applicant wants, because I feel like that, he was given an opportunity to stop by a county official saying, let's make sure your permits are all in line. And he didn't, and he kept going. If you remember, we had the same issue on North Brevard on Hog Valley, filling wetlands. So I don't know if he understands or he doesn't seem to care, or, I'm going to do it, then beg forgiveness at the end. But I will not agree to postpone this or to let it go any further. That's my motion.
Okay, sir, I have a motion on the table. Commissioner Tobias, you have a light on.
Yes, Madam Chair, just one question for staff for future commissions. The PID is, as you've mentioned many times before, is for commercial use and is not technically applicable for private use. Is that something that, as we move forward, potentially could be changed, or is there statutory guidelines that don't allow that determination? I'm not aware.
I mean, we certainly, going forward upon board direction, could look at comprehensive changes for wetland policies. We've done it before. We've twice been in stipulated settlements over wetlands policies. So, residential and commercial are treated differently, but, they dredge their personal residential property. So when you look at the uses that are allowed for wetlands, it's for access, septic, and primary structure, and then you could, if you had a mangrove shoreline, perhaps do like an elevated pier or walkway to enjoy the shoreline. You couldn't put any structures, of course, in the ditch. So it does allow that for use and access, but, as it's written now, it's not. And even if that was allowed, we have the manatee protection plan that talks about dredging being best public interest, and then also the surface water protection part of the comprehensive plan that talks about new dredging. It does allow maintenance dredging too. I'd like to say that when you talk about removing muck and clearing, and trimming up mangroves, you are allowed to remove muck for maintenance. You just can't widen or deepen a channel. So, and you can trim mangroves in accordance with
Madam
DEP.
Chair, but just for clarification, if there was that change, and I don't obviously intend, that would have to go through a comp plan change, correct, to be reviewed by the state and numerous
Yes, that would
agencies?
be a text amendment. And then you'd also, if the intent is to allow this kind of activity, you would also need to address the manatee protection plan and other policies
Got it.
within the conservation element.
Got it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I have a motion on the table. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Feltner. All in favor to deny, say yes. Yes.
Aye.
Sorry, aye. All opposed? Passes 4-1. My concern, 4-0, thank you. Or at least he's gone. My concern with that is that if we would have permitted it, of course, it would be good. I hear a lot of people that like it, but it did affect other properties and in due process of cause no harm. I think the better process now is for the magistrate to hear it and figure it out. So thank y'all. We're going to move into item H2. Commissioner Goodson, this is your district again, sir.
After that one, can we take a
Okay.
We can take a 5-minute break after H2.
Okay. I have no issues with this, Madam Chair.
You want to make a motion, sir?
Yes, I make a motion for approval, Madam.
Motion to approve. Second by Commissioner Tobias. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, passes 4-0. Take a 5-minute break. order. We're on item I-1.
Good morning, Commissioners. I-1 is James Road traffic calming. It's located just east of Interstate 95, directly abutting State Road 528. And we're seeking for the board to adopt a resolution in support of the implementation of traffic calming measures along James Road, and then delegate certain authorities to the county manager or designee to execute related documents. The request is only to approve the proposed traffic calming the county is required to consider under the stipulated settlement agreement and based on a particular set of circumstances that exist on James Road per said agreement. The proposed traffic calming was tallied from 62 responses received out of 101 eligible and affected respondents. The board may consider the following options: approve all recommendations, all traffic calming recommendations in the report, approve only certain traffic calming measures, or reject all traffic calming measures. I'm available if there's any questions.
Yes, sir, we're going to call up cards, but let me clarify a few things before we do, just so that we know what it is we're discussing. This item at the time was for a large number of houses. Now the house numbers are down. And when I was asking you guys questions before, there's a chance if we don't approve something today, we will never see anything again, because this is for traffic calming. Mr. Denninghoff, I can see you wanting to say something here.
Yes, the stipulated settlement that is sort of behind and driving, bringing this item to the board at this point, was the result of a lawsuit which took place between the city of Cocoa, Brevard County, and two landowners. The prior owner of this particular piece of property was one of those. At the time, my recollection is that the two properties were both claiming or indicating that they were going to develop 2,500 units each, and the traffic counts for 2,500 units substantially different than what we actually have today. At this point, where it's north of 300, I think south of 400. I forget the exact number. So it's a significantly lower traffic count. However, the inherent safety situation for James Road is virtually unchanged from what it was at the time. So as a part of that stipulated settlement, to address expected increased traffic crashes and incidents along James Road with the increase in traffic, it was proposed and included in the stipulated settlement to consider traffic calming measures to be installed by and at the cost of the developer. And public involvement was to be included in that effort. And so we've done that now today, and that brings us to where we are right now.
Thank you, sir. We were making negotiations about some ideas for the traffic calming. And my head wrapped around with the safety. I was trying to figure out a way to get guardrails all the way down the side of the road because I'm concerned about the drop. And I was informed that I'm not allowed to negotiate safety. We can just do traffic calming. So in the midst of this, we could have done up to 8 traffic calming devices. 10, but there was only room for 8. And on those 8, we could put in the guardrails. So we went back and negotiated, okay, we'll do this, but we want you to put in enough guardrails as if there was 10 going in, and they did agree to that. Am I correct, sir?
That's correct, Commissioner.
So this is where we're at on this negotiation. I'm going to call cards up. If you guys want to speak to it, that would be wonderful to hear from you. And I have, Commission, do you have any questions before we get started with cards? All right, I have Miss Susan Rollins. And then we will have Christopher Kelly. Hi, ma'am.
Good morning, everybody. I really appreciate you guys allowing me the time. I was going to make just one comment on the agenda. The agenda says 5 minutes, but you stated 3 minutes. Just a technicality.
Hold on just a minute. County Attorney, is this 5 minutes? Is it quasi-judicial, or is this regular?
This is regular meeting, so 3 minutes should apply. I'm not sure where it's at 5, but we'll take a look at it. It's okay. Don't use your time for that, right? Oh, that's in quasi-judicial proceedings, but this is not a quasi-judicial proceeding. This item is not, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
But I really appreciate you guys taking the time and to consider the impact to the residents of James Road. I've lived there for 17 years, and recently I have started walking for about the last year. And I will say, most drivers are very courteous and they slow down when they pass you. But recently, and it feels like it's just within the last maybe 6 months, or more, I'm noticing more traffic, and I don't know if it's because what they're doing on 524 or some of the construction down there, but I have had people, and I see them basically come up Cox Road, go down James Road, and then go back down Friday Road. And so either they're avoiding 524, but I don't know if they are aware that they're probably going 100% faster than the speed limit. And I've had some people pass where I could literally reach my hand out and I could touch that car. And I've thought about it, but I'm a good person. I'm not going to do anything to hurt anybody's car. But I really think that, that area was really meant for people to walk their horses, walk their dogs, ride their bikes, and, allowing an additional 400 or, 800 people to drive through there at very high speeds is just not acceptable for that neighborhood. And I know when I walk Rector and Rayburn, it's very nice, and the people are going slow and they're going cautiously, and I would prefer that for our James Road also. So anyway, I appreciate you just taking the consideration. I would hope that you pick them all, because I just want to slow that traffic down as much as possible. So anyway, that I don't need any more time.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Christopher Kelly?
How are y'all today? Thank you very much for having me. I'm in somewhat of an opposition for all the speed bumps. I think it's quite excessive. I think that 8 would pose a big problem for a lot of people that have heavy equipment or trailers or likewise. I do understand that with the community that's coming in with the 300 homes, that does have to, we're going to have to take that down and control that somewhat. Before I moved out to my home, I talked to a lot of people. I'm from Vieira, and we hated the chaos and we hated the control. So when we made the move to Cocoa, we asked a lot of people that, like the person that just came up here and talked to you people, that she's been here for a long time. And we wanted to come here for the peace and the solitude, and now that's somewhat disrupted. One of the speed bumps are right next to our master bedroom, so that's going to be a problem for us with the constant acceleration and deceleration. I do understand that there's 8 of them, and I would like to see some of the bumps either removed or pushed away from homes that are very close to the road, enough that it would cause a disturbance to people sleeping or waking up in the morning or something like that. So maybe I think that 8 is excessive. Where am I going to go with this? Thinking about the other people, the surrounding people on Friday or Cox, if you guys implement this big giant, 8 of them, I feel that traffic, instead of going down James, is going to start. It's going to take Friday and it's going to take Cox, or they're going to go through Rayburn or Rector, where there's only 3. So I feel that those people are going to also be directly impacted more than the people that are on James. And it's just going to be like a minefield. It's going to be a progression of people complaining about, oh, well, they're here, well, I want them here, and then it just kind of gets out of control. I think that 4 would be better. I think that 8 is excessive, and that's where I stand on it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Goodson, I think I'm going to like your questions, sir. I think I heard you a little bit.
Thank you, madam. Can you tell me where a speed table is right now in Brevard County? Installed on the road?
None that I am aware of on county roads, Commissioner.
Can you tell me one that's on a private road somewhere?
I don't know off the top of my head,
Okay.
Commissioner.
I'm sorry, y'all can't talk
Well,
out there.
there's a big difference. Is there not a difference between a speed hump and a speed table?
There is. So these are not speed humps, as
Right.
was just mentioned. A speed table has a gentle 6-foot slope, a 10-foot flat area, and then another 6-foot gentle slope with a maximum of 3 inches in height. So it's very gentle.
Now, what is a speed bump in height?
I did not bring that with me, but it's more of a, within about a foot or foot and a half, you go up and over.
Right.
I don't recall the height off the top of my head, Commissioner.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir. Real quick on that, too. So you kind of explained what the devices were. Are we obligated, when we do this, to do all 8? If you guys come back and determine it's less, we just negotiate it to get up to 8, correct?
So, Commissioner, we're not obligated, but the 8 actually is ideal to maintain the traffic speed that we're trying to, the ideal traffic speed we're trying to get to. In fact, for the approximately 1 mile stretch, you would need 10 speed tables to adequately do it. However, because of existing driveway locations, we had to work with the consultant to figure out the best spacing without starting to change driveway locations. So ideally, again, there would be 10. We went with 8 because that is what would fit in the existing conditions.
Thank you, sir. Caitlin Castari? Then Cynthia Olson, you'll be next, ma'am.
It's Kathleen Canistrari. I've been a special education teacher for 20 years in Brevard County, and I must say moving out to Cocoa has been a dream for Christopher and I. We love it. It's very peaceful. The 1 or 2 or 3 people speeding should be held accountable. I think instead of speed bumps, maybe stop signs down James Road would be a better alternative. I'm thinking of the wear and tear on my vehicle, going over 8 speed bumps, the brakes, the ball joints, the shocks. It's a little excessive in my opinion, and Christopher and I spend a lot of time out in the front lawn and in the driveway, and it's very peaceful. We don't really have issues on that street other than a few people speeding. We love it out there. It's a very peaceful road, very serene road. That's why we left Vieira and came to Cocoa. So thank you for listening to me. Appreciate it.
Thank you, ma'am. Cynthia Olson, and then Tom Sullivan, you'll be next, sir.
I hate talking, but anyways, my name is Cynthia Olson. I live in unincorporated Brevard County in the affected area near the Windward Preserve development. And I have, here's a copy of that AO 72, just so you have one. Unfortunately, I only got 4 copies, so I didn't count later. That's a copy of that. Anyways, please vote no on the James Road traffic calming devices because the developer Taylor Morris did not meet the legal requirements according to AO 72, Section 3, Item B. That item says, consideration of speed hump installation shall not occur unless the following conditions are met. Approval of minimum of 85% of the benefited residents or 75% of the affected area residents plus the benefited area residents. Taylor Morrison used the results from 101 traffic calming surveys that they sent out to show they had 84% approval of the benefited and affected areas. Out of the 101 surveys they sent out, they only received 62 responses. If all 62 voted yes, it would be about 62% of the 101 surveys sent out, not the 84% they claimed. The developer is using percentages instead of actual numbers. This is misleading. How many yes votes did they actually get? And AO 72's definition of affected area residents are as follows. The affected area includes the benefited area and those residents who must traverse the speed humps to access their residences. That's the only people that they used in their survey. This also includes those residents who are adjacent to the roads which do not have existing speed bumps and which would be used as a bypass route by traffic avoiding the proposed speed bumps. Taylor Morrison did not include all of the required affected area residents in their survey as required by AO 72. According to Brevard County's AO2 definition of affected area, all the residents of Friday Acres, Grove Acres, The Ranch, Dalehurst Ranch, Hidden Pines Ranchette, Shade Tree Estates, Robertson Estates, Grecian Estates, Craig Road, and Hidden Road should have been included in the developer's James Road calming survey, but were not. Taylor Morrison intentionally left out these residents. On July 25th, Taylor Morrison conducted a public meeting in which all the residents that attended were vehemently against the speed tables. This is why they limited their survey to the immediate area of James Road. If these 8 speed tables are installed on James Road, almost all the traffic will be funneled down Friday Road. This means all the residents on every street and subdivision must use Friday Road to exit their street will be affected. Please vote no.
Mr. Tom Sullivan?
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Tom Sullivan with the Gray Robinson Law Firm on behalf of Taylor Morrison. Appreciate your time this morning. I have a couple folks here with me from Taylor Morrison, Fred Miller and Jeff Johnson, as well as Gil Ramirez with LTG, our traffic expert. Just wanted to say we'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. We've worked very closely with your staff for several months now. Appreciate their input. We feel like this is a good solution and complies with all the requirements, including what was set forth in the settlement agreement. And we would appreciate your support to move forward today. And again, happy to answer any questions with the team that we have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Please.
Yes, sir.
Madam Chair. The last lady that mentioned all the other subdivisions, did you solicit a vote from them? Or did you just go James Road?
We did, what we did, Commissioner, and again, I think your staff can answer some of these questions because we work closely with them, but we had a meeting, well, really the process started several months ago, back at the beginning of this year with the traffic calming study that we'd gone back and forth with your staff. Ultimately, we set out invitations for a meeting that was held on July 25th, and the folks that were invited to that meeting did not include some of the folks along James Road. That's why there was a separate survey that was sent out to those folks and to let them solicit the input that they had. But we sent it was very, very iterative process with your staff on who the notices were sent to, and we complied with everything that we were supposed to do.
Got a question for you.
Yeah.
If that be the case, why would you need 8 on James Road, but yet Rector and Rayburn has only 3?
Yeah. On the technical items, Commissioner, I would defer to our
All right,
traffic
stop
expert.
there then.
Yeah.
Why would that be true, Mark? Rayburn and Rector has the same mileage, they're the same miles. They got 3, but you're going to have 8.
Commissioner, I didn't conduct the traffic study on this. I'd ask LTG to come up.
Yeah, Gil, can you come up here, please?
Okay, and my next question would be, are you going to permit these tables, speed tables, under the same criteria as this here that indicates speed bump?
I'm glad you asked that, Commissioner. So AO 72 is not applicable in this case.
Correct.
This is not a speed hump. This is a speed table, as well as there's other things involved as well, textured pavement, reduction of travel lane widths, and vibratory edge line marking. It is the reason why we brought this to the board with a resolution for your consideration.
Okay, thank you. Now, do you know Rayburn and Rector, sir?
Yes.
Okay. Is there not, they're about the same distance, wouldn't you say, as James?
Yes.
I think identical, pretty much.
Right.
Isn't there about 3 on each one of those?
Right.
Why is there 3 speed humps there and 8 speed tables on James?
So the way that this project worked is we picked a specific design speed and we sized the project to meet that. And a speed table and a speed hump are not the same thing, as has
Correct.
already been discussed. So a speed table is supposed to be gentler on your car. It's slower, it's
Right.
wider, and so the transition period is different. And so it is possible to speed over them if they're not spaced appropriately. So the guidelines that we used are from Federal Highway, from AASHTO, which is a association of folks who specialize in design of these types of improvements, and we use their recommendations to apply them to this project specifically.
Can you tell me where the nearest speed table is in Central Florida?
In Central Florida,
Don't be careful, because I'm going to tell you the next thing, your design must not be working too well.
I didn't design the nearest speed table in Central Florida, and I can't recall where.
So we're going to be the first in the world?
No, not at all. DOT's been installing speed tables in various places. I just
Okay,
can't
where
name
would I
one off
find
the-
one?
Find one?
Where would I ride over a speed table?
How about I will get back to you on that with some locations. I can guarantee you
Okay.
we have them. This
You
is
know
not
where
something I
we-
was prepared to
Where,
answer.
gosh, just a quick question. Aren't they typically in intersections?
They are-
Typically where the tables, you're coming to, it might not be a four-way stop, it might be two-way the other way, and so typically, is that?
Right,
Is
a
that fair?
lot of the newer applications, right, with DOT moving towards a safer system for all users, they're starting to deploy speed tables on crosswalks, using raised crosswalks. I
Okay.
will say that we're designing several of them in Daytona Beach as part of a Safe Routes to School project because of their efficiency.
And you stated, Madam Chairman, you stated that you were trying to designate a certain speed for James Road, correct, by
Yes, sir.
installing 8? What is that speed going to be?
It's 35 miles an hour. We're trying to lower existing traffic to match the posted speed limit. That's our goal.
And 35 is posted now. Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. If there's anything else I can do, I'll be more than happy to answer your questions.
Madam Chair, if I may, I think I can answer at least one of the questions, which was why are these only being looked at, or a different number being looked at along James Road? That settlement agreement that's driving all this, that only required the developer at the time to install traffic calming devices along James Road exclusively. So that's all they were required to look at for the installation of these devices. It required that input from property owners along James Road be solicited regarding the location and placement of those devices. We did go beyond just along James Road and asked more than that. So all of these apply to James Road, and the requirement is from the settlement agreement. So this isn't developer initiated. This is actually a condition that was placed upon the developer's predecessors, saying you don't get to build unless you satisfy county and the concerns of the county area residents, and they agreed to that. Now, ultimately, it's up to county what and whether traffic calming measures are required, but this isn't something the developer wants to do voluntarily. It's something they have to do if we require it pursuant to the agreement. Thank you.
Question to you, may I, Madam Chair? So that being said, can I, if District 1 said, let's put in 3 right now to see how they work, that would be okay?
You could do all or none or less than what's required there, with the only caveat I would give is I would want some engineer to say that if you do something other than what's proposed in this plan, that an engineer say that it would be safe and functional and accomplish something. So I don't know, if the board just selected a number, I would want some engineer to look at that and staff to vet that, right?
Let me ask you, Mark.
Correct.
You could put in 3 and watch it for 6 months and then decide if that 3's not, put them in the right locations or whatever they have picked the right locations, and then up them to 8 or 10?
I think one of the other limitations is the way the stipulated settlement agreement is written. It is a limitation on them to be able to proceed with any additional construction or further construction activities until all traffic calming devices is complete. Okay. I would defer to the county attorney on that, but I think that is a limitation that we kind of need to give them direction now so that they can move forward.
They can do some things. They can do site activity. They just can't get a certificate of completion from the city of Cocoa for their site work, and they can't go vertical until they have completed whatever traffic calming is required.
The caveat on this, and again, help me with this if it's not correct, is that if we do nothing as far as telling them they have to do something, there's a chance that they can do what they want to do anyways, and we won't get a say after that, correct?
That's, well, effectively, if we say no to traffic calming, we're letting them build. It is within the city of Cocoa's jurisdiction. Our issue is on the road itself. And so our leverage is the stipulated settlement agreement, and do we want to do traffic calming, as the two gentlemen came up from Taylor Morrison had presented. We have been working with them, but it is their engineering assessment, and our traffic team has reviewed it and are in agreement that it makes sense.
Madam Chair, if I may, if the board were to say no traffic calming is required today, Mark's absolutely right. They could proceed with their development in Cocoa, but they would have then satisfied their obligation under the agreement. If the board later decides, for example, after the units are occupied and the traffic is actually on the streets, if the board then decides the traffic calming is desired there, the developer would no longer be required to pay for it. That's the distinction. It would be on the county at that point, because these are county roads, developments in City of Cocoa.
Okay. A quick question on this, County Attorney. So let's say that this was put off till the next meeting. We're still within a time period then, correct?
Yeah,
Please
there's
don't
no, moving it to, say, the December 3 meeting wouldn't meaningfully impact anything, because as I said, they can proceed with their site activities now, they just can't obtain certificate of completion. I'd be concerned if you started to move it too far, it might unreasonably delay their ability to complete their site work and things like that. But Taylor Morrison, they can say otherwise, but I don't think a tabling to December 3 would meaningfully impact that. I could be wrong. I don't know how close they are to completion of site work and pulling vertical building permits. So if Mr. Sullivan wants to speak to that.
Because we're, if I was going to continue, I'd probably want to bump it up a meeting, because it's the first time the public's really got to have discussions on it. I do, if you'd come up, sir, I do have concern, though, that we're going to miss an opportunity to try to make the road a little safer. That road is thin, the ditch is so deep. It's just very concerning to me, but there's really not much we can do about that. But sir, if this got tabled till the next meeting, because I think just it being the first time in the community, and this has been a hot conversation for over a year.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I mean, to be candid about it, I mean, we have a site contractor that's sort of mobilized and ready to go, with the expectation that we would do the improvements that we've talked and worked with your staff on for some time. So delaying that's not a great result for us, to be candid. We have a lot of other site work that we need to do on site. So, we can continue to do that, as Mr. Richardson said, but it's not an ideal situation. I mean, I think these technical issues are technical issues, and we've worked really closely with your staff to come. This is not something that we just sort of came up with spur of the moment with these 8 speed tables. And I know Commissioner Pritchett, your office has been involved with that too. I mean, this has been very detailed and well vetted. So if we were to delay it, I'm not sure, where that really takes us. We have had the public input through the survey process. We've had the public meeting in July. So understand there's some questions and sort of which is the best option, but we think the best option is really the one that's been presented to you. So hopefully that answers your questions. But
Okay, I don't disagree with that. I've heard Commissioner Goodsey's questions about not understanding necessarily the difference in this and the bumps. And that might give everybody a little bit of time to absorb that. My guess is that at the next meeting, the next regular meeting, it would probably be approved. So we're going to finish the cards and see what the commission wants. But yeah.
Question.
Yes, sir.
When you say you have a contractor mobilized,
right,
to put in the speed tables, right?
We've been communicating with them with the expectation this would be what work would be done.
Right, so that would be, I would assume, an asphalt contractor, correct?
It's, I can tell you it's Breyer that's doing
Well,
the work.
Breyer's
Yeah.
doing your site work.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they're gonna do they do?
Yeah, the prime contractor,
Yeah.
so that, yeah.
But I don't know if they're gonna do the asphalt. I don't care who does it.
Right.
I was just curious. You would think Breyer would do when he's paving the streets, he'd put the tables in then, because the asphalt's on site at the same time.
Yeah.
But maybe he's planning on bringing the asphalt over and doing them separately.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
understand
and I
what I'm
can't, and I
asking?
don't want to say too much about that just because I'm not in the middle of that. I'm
got
sure
you.
you can appreciate, but this has been something with regard to these traffic calming that's been a focus because of the agreement. And so I think that's why we've sort of front-ended it as something that needs to get squared away. So that's why I say it that way, but, yeah.
Just to be clear, you don't care, the developer doesn't care whether there's 15 speed humps or tables or 0. You just want a resolution. Is that what you're looking for, to be clear?
Essentially, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr., were you getting ready to hit your light?
I have a couple questions, but I'll wait
Okay.
until after the cards, okay?
Okay.
Thanks.
Mr. Wade Olson?
My name's Wade Olson. So a couple things I wanted to mention too is, first of all of the surveys and everything else went out to the people primarily in the James Road area. But as we know, and as has been mentioned, that once these calming devices go in, human nature as it is, people are going to avoid that and they're going to go up and down Friday Road. So everybody who lives off of the Friday Road area are the ones that are actually going to be impacted by this development. So during the survey, it mentions, or the concerns were speed and safety. And nothing mentioned at all about the quantity of the traffic. And that's the elephant in the room, is the quantity of the traffic. And so another thing too is speed limits, right? These roads have speed limits. So calming devices for calming traffic, for safety, maybe, but for speed, maybe not. Speed limits are the speed limits, okay? So, and then another thing too is out of the 8, we drove up there yesterday and took some pictures, and out of the 8 areas that are designated for the calming devices, 4 of those straddle driveways. So, and I'm sure that would be a concern to the individuals, the residents. So, 4 of the 8 straddle the driveway. So it's not a really clear picture as far as what the map is, but if you drive there, you'll see exactly what it is. And again, the elephant in the room, like I mentioned before, is the actual volume of the traffic that we're expected to see going up and down Friday Road. And so if you're a commuter in the morning, that traffic light there in front of the Flying J, you're going to be sitting there for a while. If you have all these people living there, so with that extra density and the extra traffic, it's going to be a big concern for everybody who lives in the area off of Friday Road, which everybody seems to have forgotten about, okay? So, state my point. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, sir. Rick Heffelfinger? And then Carl Exline, you'll be next, sir.
Rick Heffelfinger, 2000 Juniper Drive, Cocoa, Florida, District 1. I live in Dalehurst Ranches. I'm off of Friday Road. This has been going on a long time. I mean, the traffic calming, but it all has to do with what that legal requirement is. I think somebody pointed that out. So really, the people that get the vote, according to the legal, are the property owners, not the residents, the property owners along James Road. The question is, there's a survey was done. Didn't get a whole lot of response, but the survey included a lot of people that don't have a legal standing. I think I'll use the term legal standing, and Morris can correct me if I get the law wrong here. So the residents are anybody who's commonly in the house, right? I don't know where the survey went. Did it go just to the houses, the properties? Did it go to was it addressed to the property owner, or was it addressed to the property resident? That's going to get legally. So I think if you move forward now and you didn't meet that legal requirement, there's going to be a challenge. I think there's going to be a challenge anyway. But this thing has been a mess from the beginning. It's been going on a long time too. I was up here a while back. It started as one permit as the right-of-way. That's really where all the traffic study was done. I got information that shows the staff talking to the county and staff is county. County was involved, City of Cocoa was involved, the Taylor Morrison guys, the LTD or LTG or whatever the hell they are, they're involved. And I see some of the goings-on back and forth. Well, and it is really all about traffic. It's interesting because the traffic study kind of cooked the books there a little. Somebody from the county said, let's move 5% of the anticipated traffic off of Friday Road and push it down James Road, because we think those people will decide coming out of that development, oh, I think what I'll do is I'll take James Road, go to Cox, cross 524, go to 520 to get on 95. That was the justification, the logic. This thing has got a lot of stinky stuff in it, but the big point is the county is the one responsible, not Taylor Morrison. You're the ones who are going to get sued if proper notification. You better make sure that's true. You better make sure it went to the property owners before you make a decision. So I really think this needs to be pushed. And for another thing, this is unfinished business. When was it new business? This has not been on the agenda the whole year. There's been some related stuff. The meeting that Taylor Morrison supposedly had for everybody, you want to know what the title of the flyer was? It didn't say anything about traffic calming. I was sitting there, I've been waiting, because I've been doing digging. This has been misrepresented. There's guardrails on the speed humps, by the way, people. That was not in the survey. Thank you.
Thank you. Carl Exline. And then Miss Jennifer Theron.
Hello, my name's Carl Exline, 4375 James Road. I live right off of James. You had a lot of good speakers today. You're right, there's a 20-foot ditch that I've seen a couple cars go in, and once you go in, you don't go out. I'd be interested to know what the traffic engineer had for the distance between the speed humps, or whatever they're called now. Just so we know, you said there's 8, so are they equidistant, or how far are they separated? And the other concern I have is it's just about James, and all the dump trucks, all the heavy equipment, everything is either going to go down Cox Road or it's going to go down Friday Road. So I mean that's a lot of traffic of a lot of big equipment. And of course, Friday Road has a ditch on either side of it, right? So I'm not sure I have any answers for you, but there's quite a bit of issues with increasing, the population by 400 houses, which could be 800 people, right? Potentially. So, or 800 cars, I should say. So I don't have an answer, but I wanted to try to make sure you guys are aware that, the city of Cocoa's got new revenue coming in, right? But now you're responsible, the county's responsible for all the traffic going in and out. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Mr. Exline, let me give this to you to sit with. It shows the proposal, just so you have it for later. Yes, sir. Jennifer Theron?
Good morning. My name is Jen Therian, 2790 Pine Lily Lane. I've been working on this issue for over 20 years. 20 years. I have been diligent in working with traffic, the county, and worked to put forward this idea, for the traffic calming. I walk that road, and I have been nearly hit numerous times. I can tell you about a traffic table because we do have them in Brevard County. We, matter of fact, have them within probably 6 miles of James Road. The actual name of the street is Washington Avenue. It is near a intersection with stop signs and that sort of thing. The reason that we're having discussions about speed table and speed hump and the difference, speed tables are to keep it safe we're not having anybody launching off of a speed hump into the ditch. That was a very important part. That agreement talked about consulting the people that live along James Road. It didn't talk about 6 dozen other places or streets. The agreement is to address the traffic, and the amount of speeding that goes on that road is just insane. The 2 traffic studies that were done, the average speed on the eastern part of the road was 46 and 48 miles an hour at 2 separate locations, okay, which is pretty excessive for a 35-mile-an-hour road. There has been great deal of effort going between the developer and the county to come up with a design that is safe, that is going to work, that is going to maintain that speed somewhere around the 35-mile-an-hour speed limit. Those speed tables are also designed so that it's going to keep things safe for fire trucks and other rescue vehicles. I think that that looking at the agreement, that everything has been done to keep this sensible and safe so that people can enjoy the area. It's a rural area, and people ride, walk, and do all sorts of things out on that road. And with the increased traffic, if this isn't done now, we're going to miss out. We have worked way too hard, way too long to have this happen, for it not to go through. I ask you to please consider all the surveys that went out for the people that live along James Road that are going to drive across those speed tables. I ask you to approve this design. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Katie Delaney?
Good morning, Commissioners. Commissioner Pritchett, I appreciate that you mentioned to possibly move this to the December 3rd meeting. I think that that is appropriate, and I appreciate that. One thing that I've noticed through this process is that the community input, I feel like there needs to be more community input, because like you guys had said before, this is our shot to get this right. And the community meeting that was held wasn't necessarily marketed in the way that I think that it should have been. A lot of people were very confused when they got to the meeting. They didn't know it was going to be about traffic, and that was solely what it was going to be about. And like others have said, many of the people on James Road were not notified. And if they would have known what this meeting was about, they would have been there. And the other thing I would like to mention is the lane shrinking in this area will be, it's not the most ideal thing, because there's a lot of horse trailers, there's a lot of trailers in that area, and a lot of big trucks. And we all have seen what Clear Lake Road has turned into. And we don't want this to be the next Clear Lake Road. So I'm asking that we go ahead and put the pause on this. And like the county attorney said, he thinks that this, is appropriate and won't be too of a hard time on the contractor. So, yeah, thank you.
Ms. Delaney, don't leave just yet. And I'm going to try not to throw you on the spot, because it's a lot of new information for you in some areas. If we make that decision to do that, you're going to have to move very quickly in a small amount of time to try to get input. And I think you're going to need to probably sit down with Road and Bridge and Mr. Denninghoff and just get some extra data. Just so you know, again, I've been through it, and I probably would approve it, because it's probably the best package we're going to get, with having to come back with a fortune of dollars later trying to fix something. And I know you are too. You live close to the area. I just don't want anybody to die there.
I agree.
And if I could have got a guardrail all the way down it, I would have done it. But they told me I'm not even allowed to ask for that, and we're sneaking in some extra guardrails. So just so that you have all that data, so that you can go and get all the information you need. But I don't necessarily disagree that this isn't the first time that a lot of people are hearing it from this angle. So again, if I was sitting here, I would move it to the next meeting just to allow them to absorb a little bit, because a lot of times most of the conflict we're having is people not getting good information and moving off of the emotional stuff going on Facebook, which isn't fair to them. And if I believed a lot of that stuff myself, I'd be pretty mad myself at our public representation. So I know you'll do all that.
I commit to doing that for sure.
I know you do. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you. That is the end of our cards. I have a list here, and you're not John Tobiah, but your name's coming up as John Tobiah.
No, that's an old one.
Go ahead, Mr. Feltner.
Pat, Chief Voltaire, somebody mentioned fire earlier, and I know that speed humps versus tables, these things are not necessarily good for fire equipment. So can you, 8 speed tables along that road, can you tell us what that would do to ambulances and tankers?
The general rule of thumb for speed tables are a little newer, but I know the speed humps that we do have around the county, the general rule of thumb is you add 10 seconds to a response time for every speed hump.
And the overall wear and tear on the vehicles over its life, I mean, I think we just spent $700,000 on some vehicles,
We
right?
did.
They're
We
not
proved it
cheap.
today.
So
Thank you. So yeah, absolutely. Our equipment's not cheap, and we definitely don't get it every day. So we do have to take care of it and make sure we slow down to that appropriate speed. But yeah, we all know what the speed humps do to everyone's vehicle as well.
Thank you.
I don't believe I have any more lights. Okay, Commission, I am going to ask that we could maybe go ahead and move this to the first meeting in December.
I'll second that.
Okay, well, can you make the motion for me?
I'm sorry.
I have a
I'll make a
motion
motion that we
by
move
Commissioner
it to
Feltner.
the December 3rd meeting. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you have a second? Is that a regular light, sir?
Yes.
Okay, Commissioner Tobiah?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's unique that we have the representative from the developer coming here and saying we don't really care what the answer is, just give us an answer so we can move forward. And I completely get that. I understand the mobilization, and I'm gonna ask as a contractor over here, Commissioner Goodson. I think that's a pretty fair request by these folks, but you understand the mobilization of heavy equipment, and let me understand do we need to make a decision now, or is this a fair request from the developer's perspective to, do it sooner than later?
Well, I've been out there on James Road and I've watched his development. Right now, he's in a clearing and dirt moving business. Then comes sewer and water, then comes concrete and roads and asphalt. Now, what I don't understand about him, to do this speed table, you're going to require asphalt, an asphalt spreader. But are you going to move it all the way out of Briar, out of Orlando, over here for, 20 tons of asphalt? That I don't understand. So can you answer that for me, sir? Because usually you would do these speed tables at the end of the job when you're laying asphalt. At least that's my opinion.
Fred Miller with Taylor Morrison, 431 North Summerlin Avenue, downtown Orlando. So to your point, yes, right now they're doing clearing and grading, and then they're going to start doing ponds and pipe. And so we have time before we're ever cutting roads in or doing any sort of paving and asphalt. But the stipulated settlement agreement required that those improvements, the language, we were going to do it for the benefit of the community as soon as possible, whatever they want. If they want 0 tables, we're fine with 0. If they want 8, we're fine with 8. You asked for guardrail, we added the guardrail. I think in the design, we heard that they wanted it tapered to actually provide a little bit more safety from a fall. Guardrail, so we are indifferent except to make it, to adhere to what the stipulated settlement agreement required, which says traffic calming. And so we're now debating on whether or not a traffic hump is the same as a traffic table and which one is better or worse for traffic, overall just community good feeling, and obviously wear and tear on cars. To us, as long as we're able to continue as we see, and obviously we have a lot of machinery out there, and so we wanted to do it before. If you want to table it and make it later in the development cycle to make sure that the improvements are exactly what the community want, we're willing to post a bond. We're willing to put money in an escrow account and have you figure out what you truly want, what the community truly wants. We just want the community to be able to continue putting our pipe in, continuing to get towards completion, and then obviously do what the community wants.
So holding off to the next meeting is not a big factor?
It's not a big issue. It's
got
just
you.
in my life, from my purview, I'm seeing tables, no tables, or something, a mixture thereof. And so I don't know what the next hearing gives you in all of that, because we've worked with staff pretty closely. So I think you have enough information to make a good decision today, but if you feel that you need to take that time, no, it doesn't stop us, and it's not going to be the end of the world, but you have everything I think you need to make one of those three decisions.
I think what we have here is, we've never, let's put it this way. I've been in the county my entire life. I've never heard of a speed table. I've heard of speed humps.
Well, if you come to Central Florida, they're all up and down every grid pattern road
I
in
try to
downtown
stay out of Orlando.
Because they want to slow everybody. I know you don't. No, I know most people here don't really want to come to downtown Orlando.
Yeah, but see, I think these people are the same way. They speed humps.
But I can tell you, the speed tables are by far the best from a impact to your car. It's everything he said. It's a lower rise. You have a little bit of farther time to actually have a transition in speed. But again, if the community doesn't want it,
I'm sure we do.
Have it.
I'm sure we want it. It's just that.
But I think you want it. I think the community long-term is going to want something there.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Commissioner Tamaya?
I think so, but I'm more concerned with your opinion than his opinion.
My opinion would be, let the man do it, table it for one more meeting.
Okay, that's it.
Bring an asphalt tanker over here next week.
Super.
Or an
That's
asphalt
all I
truck
need.
next
Perfect.
week. After that, vote for it and let him do it.
Thank you.
Okay, and you know what? No wonder, whatever happens, there's going to be a group of people that aren't going to like it. There's going to be a group that loves it. But we have to make the best decision for the taxpayers and the people that live there for their safety overall. So I'm confident Commissioner Delaney at that point will be able to make that decision. So you're going to have some people really mad at you, but some people are going to cheer you on too. But that's life as a commissioner. Thank you, sir. So I have a motion on the table to table it. Do I have a second it?
I'll second it.
I have a second it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, passes 4-0. We'll come to the next meeting, ma'am. All right, we are moving into item J1.
Morning, Commissioners. Item J1 is coming from the TDC. It's a request to approve the marketing support grant recommendations, which include 44 projects that would get $805,000 worth of marketing support.
Commissioners, I have 2 cards on this. Does anybody want to comment before I call the speakers? Sir.
Yes. I have a motion here coming up, not on this, but something very closely related. Contact my office, and I'd made a poor assumption. My assumption is that we had appropriated funds to the TDC, and the TDC used those funds for generic marketing purposes. When I talk about generic marketing purposes, I'm come to the Space Coast, or you see the billboards up there with an astronaut and a rocket going off. They were not used for specific purposes. In other words, come to the Brevard Renaissance Festival. That would be a specific purpose, not a general purpose. We do that through direct appropriations here. When I inquired about this, I was completely wrong. And we do spend marketing dollars on specific purposes. I found one right now that we had spent, that's currently on this list, that we'd already spent $11,000 on, another one that we'd spent $4,600 on that did not come out of a direct appropriation from this board. So the motion I would like is no additional marketing funds will be spent on cultural and sports events beyond what is individually awarded by the Brevard County Commission. So that is something that has no impact on what we're going to discuss here in a minute, the $865,000. This just would mean it would not decrease the amount of dollars that are spent on marketing. It would just be used for generic marketing purposes. So that's the motion. Before we get to that, if that's okay, Madam Chair.
Did you want to make that motion now, sir, or are you waiting?
Sure. To make a motion, no additional marketing funds will be spent on cultural and sports events beyond what is individually awarded by the Brevard County Board of County Commissioners.
Question, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Goodson, you won, then Commissioner Feltner, you're next.
Okay. Commissioner Tobias, why? Why, is there something that they spent money that you don't agree with, or is this just another way to change it or something? Tell me why.
Madam Chair, first of all, this would not change the overall marketing. If it was $1 million, it would still be $1 million. What the intent behind this is that all individual marketing for grants would come through this board. So again, there would be no change to the total dollar amount. Let's assume we, in here, there's a whole list of grants here. I'm just taking the top one off. This was not mentioned here, the Thunder on Cocoa Beach.
Right.
If we go ahead and award them $50,000, that's fair. But what I would see unfair is if before receiving that $50,000, they had benefited from $20,000 of individual marketing that had already come out of the TDC. This is something that has and is currently happening right now. Not the Thunder on Cocoa Beach, but another one.
Peter, question. If that scenario played out like Commissioner Tobias said, then would your office not say, okay, you've already got 20, so you only have 30 left?
Correct, sir. Yeah,
So-
we would only market the amount that was awarded by the board.
Even though they might have got 20 up front?
Well, we would subtract
Yeah.
subtract that amount from
So,
that.
so what is this going to gain?
So we just went, Madam Chair, we just went through this with a public interest determination, right? Whether it was before the fact or whether it was after the fact, right? So what happens if we, for instance, decide that one of these is not worthy of receiving a fund for one reason or another, and we've already marketed dollars before that? How do we then subtract that amount if it's not awarded in the first place? Again, this is, there's dates here that the applicants have the ability to apply a year in advance. They know when many of these festivals are planned years and years in advance. This just gives the authority to the board to make these decisions and not specifically administration. We're making these decisions right here.
You're up, sir.
Go ahead. Can I ask a question of Peter?
Yes, sir.
Peter, this motion today, what would that change that you're doing today?
It would just mean that we would wait for the board's decision before we used any events in our marketing.
Are there events that are being marketed now that this would
We did do
stop
some marketing
future?
for some events that, were coming up in in November, so we did spend some dollars on that, yes, sir.
So passing this today would mean that some of those events coming up here in the near term would have those dollars subtracted
That's
from
right.
what
Yes,
had
sir.
been allocated?
They would, yeah, anything that had been already allocated will subtract from their award.
I don't disagree with Commissioner Tobias' proposal, because I think all of this should be approved by the Board of County Commissioners. We always have. And so I think it's a good proposal. Let the board sign off on it, or just if something's comes up, we had that one problem with the gentleman with his tax returns. So I think this board has to be the ones responsible. The buck stops with us. Mr. Richardson, do you have a new light on, sir?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. I think this is closely related to the item before the board. It can be considered now, but just procedurally, I'm going to suggest that you take the cards and then entertain both motions after the speakers are heard.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to put that motion on hold. Mr. Chuck Sheridan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the last 3 days, I've been one of the judges at the National Kidney Foundation's Rick Zalick surfing competition. I was asked by one of the organizers who just gave birth 12 days ago that I speak this morning on their behalf. She's out there helping with the tear down and cleanup. She sent me a text this morning and said the main point for today is that they table or extend the approval of the new sports grant application until the new commissioners are in place or the next meeting. This is the first time in 15 years we did not receive grant money for our event. We bring in thousands of out-of-county contestants and spectators who stay in the hotels and promote the area. I've judged, now this is me again, I have judged this event for 6 years. The contestants come from all over the world. They don't just come for 3 days for the event. They come for days or weeks to practice and train and learn how the movement of the sand is. And when they leave, they travel all over the world and share their experience here, which brings additional tourism, free advertising. The event promotes more than just tourism. It promotes cultural activities with a silent auction that brings in artists and art from all over the world. The annual event includes the Taste of Brevard, where you can sample foods from several locally owned restaurants, view the art and the silent auction. All the items and printing and merchandise, T-shirts and everything is all bought locally from local businesses. Grants of tax dollars are intended for events for the public good. The National Kidney Foundation Rick Zalick Tournament does that by design and intent. It is the largest fundraiser for the National Kidney Foundation in the world. One of the contestants we had yesterday received a kidney transplant that may not have occurred had it not been for this event annually for the last 24 years. This event was created to raise money and save lives. The fact that it promotes local tourism spending and promoting small businesses, restaurants, cultural and art exhibits that are enjoyed by the local residents and the tourists is just a byproduct. If ever there was a year that a grant was needed, it was this one. The tournament's usually in September, and they changed it to October because of competing competitions in Panama City, Jacksonville Beach, and Daytona that were taking contestants away from here because they received larger grants and had larger prizes. So they moved it to October, and we had a hurricane, and it delayed it to Veterans Day. So the time period to get the grant application by, and meet the criteria, they need some time to work with you or find something to
Sorry, sir, your
resolve.
time is
Okay.
up.
I thank you for your time,
Thank you.
and
Thank you.
thank you for your outgoing commissioners for your time. and
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Douglas Taylor?
Good morning. My name is Doug Taylor. I live at 5011 Dixie Highway Northeast in Palm Bay. I sit on the board of directors of the Melbourne Art Festival, a proud organization that has been enriching our community for over 4 decades. I stand before you today not as a representative of my festival, but also the voice of several other nonprofit organizations. Today, I'm deeply concerned about the recent decision to withdraw bed fat tax funding from these small 8 nonprofit volunteer-run events and organizations. For well over a decade, the Brevard County Tourist Development Council grants have been a lifeline, enabling us to showcase the Space Coast as a vibrant cultural destination. Let us not forget that these events are more than just cultural milestones. They're economic drivers. Each festival and cultural event that has been excluded raised between 1,000 and 2,000 out-of-town visitors. That's as many as 16,000 out-of-county visitors that really divided and gave us some additional lodging, customers, dining, shopping, injecting vital revenue into our local businesses. These visitors are exactly who we want to attract as return visitors, new workers, residents for our growing community. By supporting these small nonprofits, you are investing in the very foundation of our community, prosperity, and resilience. Moreover, the funds we are advocating are voter mandated. Brevard taxpayers entrusted this money to you with the expectation that you use it to support and enhance local events that reflect our community's values and spirit. Not just large sports events, not just beaches and lifeguards, not just advertising, but also cultural events. It's in the mandate. These small nonprofit events and venues have consistently demonstrated their ability to deliver substantial benefits, and we do it without the professional management and huge budgets like the worthy organizations that your current plan funds. Our margins are razor thin. Every dollar counts on our fight to continue our mission. The Melbourne Art Festival and our fellow nonprofits are more than just events. They are beacons of creativity, education, and community engagement. After suffering the devastating loss of Florida state arts and cultural funding, it's looking dire for these NPOs. Like everywhere, our costs continue to rise for everything, including advertising, event space, advertising, police and security, and of course, insurance. I urge you, honorable commissioners, to reconsider the decision to defund these vital programs and restore bed tax funding to these small organizations. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioners, that's all the cards. What is your pleasure? Commissioner Tobias, did you want to bring your one motion back right now, sir?
No, Madam Chair, I wanted to speak to the 44 applicants here.
Okay, sir.
And I didn't want to speak to them individually, though I will be more than willing to, and it's interesting to segue from the previous speaker, but, and I want to thank the TDC for following many of the guidelines. I think future commissions can work on this to make this even better, because there are a lot of problems in the applicants that we have here. So I wanted to go over just a few of those. 25 of the 44 applicants are for-profit entities. Not all of these applicants follow the simple directions of providing articles of incorporation as requested, but they're still here on our list. One not-for-profit pays an executive hundreds of dollars an hour, and several have executive compensations of well over $100,000. That's the challenge of deciding what is a nonprofit. Many times nonprofits have people at the top that make substantial amounts of money. One of the applicants has $7 million in revenue and an endowment of $5 million, yet we're providing them with money. Some of these events have already happened or are currently happening. The vast majority of these applicants provided 990s that were more than two or more years old. And here's the one that bothers me the most, the fact that it made it here, and I will name it here because I'm sure you guys are curious. One applicant has already publicly stated that they will be leaving Brevard County. They said Orlando has 9 times more tourists than Brevard County, so it'll be hard not to make that choice. Yet we're going to provide them with thousands of dollars. That would be the Wizard of Oz Museum. These applicants return year after year. None of these, so not all of these applicants list tourism on their 990s as a source of income. Some even specifically list local residents as their focus. One of these applicants is associated with an organization that is holding billions of dollars in assets and investments. So there's a whole bunch of problems with some of these, and I can't believe that I'd be willing to say punt this till the next meeting, but I think it's patently unfair that we're going to. A couple of these are not ADA compliant. The major events are not. Now, the grounds may be, but the activities are not, and that's in the application process. I think there's a lot that needs to be dug into and before we go and offer hundreds of thousands of dollars to these organizations. Maybe it's worthy to set the parameters up so we focus in on nonprofit. But again, it's not just as easy as saying nonprofit. We have to look at what truly is a nonprofit. But again, that is just food for thought instead of picking individual ones of these out. I'm more than willing to go into that if so needed, but those are just my initial thoughts on these 44 applicants.
Madam Chair. Thank you, Commissioner Tobias. You know, I'm sure, like anything, we could find something wrong in everything. But to cut out some of them just because they don't qualify, would it not be better or fair that we look at this and maybe you won't be around and I'll miss you. I'll call you back as a consultant. I wouldn't bank on that, okay? But wouldn't it work better if we were to have a workshop and go over these things where we can take one at a time, say, here's the problem. I wish we'd have done it earlier because I know you've always had you had a great deal of love for these things, and I appreciate that. But wouldn't that be better for us than just saying we're going to cut? Because we got Peter, who's supposed to be watching the money, I would assume, right, Peter?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, and then you cut some of them, Commissioner, and I just find it difficult. I find it unusual. And what better way for everybody to have a clear understanding of how much fun it is setting up here than let Katie enjoy that, down the road.
Madam Chair, I think that's a great idea. I like the format that the board, I think, unanimously set up for the major. I think it makes it a lot more fair. I think it makes it a lot clearer for the applicants. But after this first application process, it's clear there are some holes in it, holes that we need to fix, and I'm glad we make those changes. But again, there's a long way to go. But again, this is just some problems I have with some of these. If you think they can be worked out through a workshop process, I think that would be a great idea.
Well, then you would have to agree to table this.
I just have one question for Peter. Peter, when do you need us to finalize this?
Well, sir, I mean, certainly we're happy if the board wants to table, but there are events that are occurring that we'll just have to wait, and in some cases, they'll miss the opportunity, to get marketing support, but so be it.
I mean, if we got it done at the next meeting, that would be preferable?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Couldn't you give us a list, too, of the ones that are going to come online the quickest?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that would make sense.
We could triage, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we'd like to go ahead and approve all of District 1's right now, but I think that's not going to go through.
Madam Chair, one of the stipulations here was that we handle the marketing, so we do it beforehand. So we used to reimburse in the background. I think to give you time to have and not force it on the next meeting, but we could change that. I think I would certainly support that we could reimburse ones that would be caught in that timeline of until such time that
Is that your motion then? Tobias, sir, you want to make the motion that we can reimburse for those ones that are being caught in the interim?
I would be okay and table it until such a time that the board has an opportunity to do a workshop.
Is there enough time to do a workshop with a lot of these?
Well, if you reimburse retroactively, then it
Reimbursements,
doesn't,
yeah.
then it wouldn't matter.
I could vote for that if you'll add back into 8 that you cut out.
Well, I think that's the point of that, not to interrupt, is for us, the new board, to decide.
Add
that.
those back in, okay.
But we didn't cut anything out. We changed the parameters,
Which
and they
cut
didn't.
them
fit-
out.
But
Well,
it was
that
not.
was a
It was
long
not done with
time ago.
intent.
Yeah,
You
well,
voted for this
yeah.
too, Mr.
Yeah, I
Commissioner
did, but I
Goodson.
didn't, but I didn't know
Well-
you were going to be this
And
good.
I didn't know that it would allow a organization that said we're leaving Brevard County to come apply
Who's
for it
that?
either. The Wizard of Oz Museum.
Oh, okay.
So
Don't like
so
me.
again, it's something that you absolutely can fix.
There's a thought pattern on this, is for years and years, and not anything on the commissioner before, they did a great job too, but I've watched this thing change every time this item comes up, which is a good thing, because it brings up new problems every time. Every time you got a problem, you got to figure out a solution. So this is going to constantly be changing as far as how to manage these dollars, because, we got to be responsible for them. So I think maybe the commission moving forward should probably try to plan on a couple workshops during their term to try to figure out what to do with these. And so the goal on this, though, it's not really a benevolent item. It's how to get extra tourism dollars into the area. So as you're trying to consider those things again as well. And I'm going to agree to your motion, sir, but I want to throw this out because I have Commissioner Delaney's attention here. You got to really make sure, Commissioner Delaney, that you are making sure that District 1 gets its fair share of this, because a lot of times we were like down on zero. So you get the numbers, add them up, and figure it out, ma'am. Okay, so Commissioner Tobias, back to you, sir. Is someone ready to make a motion?
Can you just restate it, and I'm willing to second that.
Okay, to postpone the decision till such a time that the board can have at least one workshop, giving the applicants the opportunity to come and present their cases, and those that fall into the interim between now and such a time that the decision is made by the board, be eligible for retroactive reimbursement of marketing funds.
All right, I'll second that.
Quick question before I called that. What about any of these organizations that, like the Space Coast Symphony the Orchestra? Since it's just a reimbursement, it shouldn't affect them waiting for a workshop?
Well, Commissioner,
Anybody?
it would, because the board would have to approve it at the work, subsequent to the workshop, you'd have to approve which ones are going to get the funding. So what I would suggest is that we will try to schedule something in January.
That's enough time.
We'll look at probably a Thursday. We've done a lot of the board workshops in the past on Thursdays between meetings, and we'll bring that back to at the next board meeting to get a date from the board.
Okay, look what we're doing to the new board. All right, I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Good work, guys. 4. I keep forgetting. I should be used to that. No, we spent, I think, 2 years of the commission only having 4 commissioners. That was very interesting. All right, we are moving into our last public comment. Mr. Rick Heffelfinger.
Rick Heffelfinger, 2000 Juniper Drive, Cocoa Floater, wonderful District 1.
Wanted to kind of come down here, and I'm actually looking forward to the next board that's going to be here. I wanted to say goodbye to Jason, my buddy. I don't know why he's not here. Was he called away on an emergency? Are you going to dock his pay for not attending his mandatory required meeting? No. Jeez. Really going to miss you, John. It's been fun. Going to miss you, Rita. Been fun. Looking forward to 3 new people. My gosh, you guys are going to have to, I think decisions today were made. They're good, because you're going to have to work with all those 3 people. So I look forward to you guys working close. I love this idea. I don't know why we weren't doing workshops. I mean, you guys have been here for 8 years. Could have been doing workshops a long time ago. So it's interesting you'd say that now. Hopefully, we've got some high anticipated expectations of our new people. I don't really care about Katie, but it'll be interesting to see what happens. I think that this process has suffered terribly over the failure of engaging the public, and I hope to see that happen much more. It was kind of amusing that the traffic calming was put down as continued or unfinished business. You really never started that business. Not quite sure what I means. Information, maybe? There's never been a public hearing. There should have been a public hearing a long time ago. And I think this whole thing about the public getting involved and having an advocate, like we believe we have an advocate in Katy, the county's going to have to step up their game, because they're part of that whole public involvement and engagement too. And my experience has been not good. And I don't know who it was, why it was, but delaying of public records, seeming to drag things out, that stuff's kind of not going to be tolerated. And we look at you guys, at least that my opinion is, you know what your job is? You advocate for us against the bureaucracy over there. If you won't do that, they're going to run us over. And I think in the past they've been running us over. So I hope that Katy holds the bureaucracy accountable as well. You guys have not, some of you have not, I think, done a very good job. I mean, Jason Steele told me himself that wasn't his job. This is a COCO project, and they're going to do what they're going to do. That's the wrong answer. And I hope all the new commissioners realize that's the wrong answer. We'll see. But I really did want to say bye-bye, John. Bye-bye, Rita. Good luck in your future endeavors. And that's all sarcastic. You understand that, right? Okay, thanks. But hey, Tom and Rob, now's your opportunity. There's 3 new ones. Let's see what happens. But I think that public engagement thing, you guys really need to watch that because the public is getting fired up. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, we are done with public comments. We're going to move to board reports. County Manager.
I have no report.
County Attorney.
I have no report, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Goodson.
No report other than I will miss you immensely, and I'll surely miss John immensely. I hope, John, you don't get in front of me at a traffic jam, okay?
Traffic jam.
Yeah, I'll run over you with my asphalt spreader.
Okay.
Commissioner Goodson, you've been a lot of fun.
You ever run over someone with an asphalt spreader? You have? Okay. All right. I believe you. I believe you.
The problem is you'll have to make a decision. Do I go right or left or right or left? So I'll just pick one and you'll swerve the other way. So.
Okay, Commissioner Tabaya.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Last Vice Chair report. Today is National Pizza with the Works Except Anchovy Day. Useful Florida fact, approximately 1,500 mermaids have swum at Wickawatchee since mermaid shows debuted 60 years ago. This day in Florida history, on the evening of November 12th, 1833, along with the rest of North America, were witness of the great meteor shower. An estimated 72,000 meteors crisscrossed the sky each hour, prompting some people to fall to the ground, praying to God to save the world. At the time, the true cause of meteors was not known, so many religious persons assumed it was the end of days. And county employee recognition. Andrea McAvoy, interim director of Titusville Library, years of service. 2, Andy started working part-time at Brevard County Library System January 12, 2022 at the Cocoa Beach Library System. She came to us with extensive library experience working in other systems. She finished her online master's degree in library science and information systems. Upon receiving the master's degree, she was selected to fill the role of reference library supervisor at the Titusville Library in March 2023. She has proven to be a natural leader and tremendous public servant. She has worked with all the staff in Titusville and brought a sense of team and fun to the library. When the director of Titusville needed to be out on leave, Andy was appointed interim director. She was able to oversee the branch activities such as summer reading activities and early voting during this time. She has a calm demeanor and handled challenging patrons and situations well. Patrons often ask her specifically when seeking help at the computer lab. Andy is quick to volunteer for activities system-wide and participate in system activities. She has been instrumental in helping with working with material selection teams, recataloging of those have gender-specific names. Think about that. Bobby, Sam, and Zelda. She also has an amazing collection of holiday socks and Doc Marten boots. Andy, thank you for your service to the county. And finally, here is my one request, and I probably shouldn't say it after, telling Commissioner Goodson he couldn't make a decision and stick with it one way or another. I would ask politely one of the 2 commissioners that stay, you can get rid of all this mess, the National Day, the useful fun fact, or whatever the heck the case may be, but I would ask that you hopefully pick and continue to recognize a county employee that we, overlook many times, but the public certainly is much better off for their hard work and their diligence. It's something that I was always proud to do on behalf of all of us, and I would hope that you would continue that. Thank you for at least taking that into consideration. That's my report, Madam Chair.
Well, we have a couple of plaques for our 2 outgoing members. And I think it would be appropriate if we take a picture afterward, but for Commissioner Pritchett, for your years of service on the Board of County Commissioners, we greatly appreciate it. We wish you success in your next endeavor, and we'll pass that to John, and then I think we'll take a picture. And we appreciate your 8 years of service to the Board of County Commissioners.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And Commissioner Goodson and I got you a small thing, and
it's so nice.
so I'll just say I hope you never need it.
No,
But-
the real reason for that, I must confess, if you go out in that parking lot and your car won't crank, that's for you to get your ass out of here, okay?
Okay. All right.
Thank you for
You can-
this, and
you
I must say,
Little preview of how this is going to go here in the next couple of years.
with what we've done with the commissioners, it seems to be very rare that we get a lot of commissioners that make a whole 8 years. We've had a few come and go through the time period of other reasons. I just want to say that I can't thank the county staff enough. I'm amazed at all of the help and the professionalism you guys have been through the years. If you always tell the truth. I mean, we ask you questions and ask you, what we can do to do this or what we cannot do, what's the boundaries. Morris, you have done just such a great job. We bring out the ideas and you do your best to protect us as a commission, to make sure we're not getting the county in trouble or anything we do individually. And sometimes it's not the answer we want to hear, but you have been so great at protecting us and protecting the taxpayers of the county. Thank you so much. Frank, I can't thank you enough for your guidance and your friendship. You have really helped this county get through a lot of hard times. We've been through COVID, we've been through economic crisis, and you have just done a great job, sir, with your leadership and your way of managing the whole staff. It's just been very good experience, and I'm going to miss names, but John, I can't thank you enough for your wisdom, even though you've got thrown out a few of my meetings from time to time. You have just been a great advocate of always telling the truth, and you're just such a good man. And I'm going to miss people, Jim, and all of you guys, and Billy, thanks for the plaque. And thank you guys so much for all you've done. I've grown so fond of you, your family, and I have to say I love y'all. You're just such good people, and this county's so blessed to have such great people in leadership here. And it's been tough, even though elections bring out the best in people. That's one of your words there. That's a little sarcastic. It's been a very trying time, but things are going to calm down again. They always do about 4 months after, and people learn to be kind again. Kindness is never weakness. So just, you guys keep doing what you're doing. You're doing such a great job with that. Mr. Goodson, I have thoroughly enjoyed you, sir. And I told you the other night you're a good man. You said, no, I'm not. I said, you are. You're just cranky. But he's a good person. He's got... Yeah. I know. I'm going to have a talk with her later. I'm sure to help you out, sir, with your rest of your life. But thank you for all you've done for this county and all you continue to do. I appreciate it so much. I know it hasn't been always very easy. Commissioner Feltner, your family, and you've been... And so I just wanted to say all that. I thank you so much. And at the end of this, I hope we've done everything we need to do to please the Lord. At the end of the day, if you've pleased the Lord, you've had a very good day. And I'm just going to throw that out right now because I am in ministry. And right now, I just pray for this county and everybody in here for you to be blessed and to be able to get some joy in your life, and that the Lord would prosper you as your soul prospers. And on that, I'm going to call this meeting adjourned.
Okay.
Okay, you want to do pictures?
The opinions expressed by any member of the public during any period of public comment do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, or the program sponsor, and are solely those of the presenter. The Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, and the program sponsor hereby expressly disclaim any and all responsibility or liability for any defamatory or slanderous statements expressed by any member of the public during any such period.